sheets and all that kind of stuff, I did want to talk about wrestling journalism as a concept, as a topic, because I feel like at least for I think all of us, we can say that, the dirt sheets, wrestling news, at one point or another, I feel like we've read articles, we've been hyped up by rumors, we've been wound up by things on the internet that people say came from, I don't know, the wrestlingballsniffer.net or whatever, and then people argue
You mean
over the
Observer?
rumor. Yes, exactly. Sorry, I misspoke. That the Wrestling Observer. Um, so I wanted to talk about the role of wrestling journalism, and let's kind of like start off like what does that mean, a wrestling journalist? Because I feel like people have different definitions or concepts of what a wrestling journalist is. I think the some people say, well, wrestling journalism, like Dave Meltzer, for example, like that's our quote unquote wrestling journalist. But like David, what does the term wrestling journalist mean to you? And do you think it's a legitimate form of journalism, or is something else entirely?
I think it means you cover wrestling,
Mm-hmm.
and your legitimacy is in what you put out there.
Right. So you think
And it,
wrestling journalism as a concept, you think like it's legit, right? Like if someone's
yeah,
legit wrestling journalist, yeah. Who would you and like and the kind of outlets that I'm talking about, the kind of people that are in the conversation. Who would you consider a wrestling journalist?
Simon Miller.
Okay.
It's
Yeah.
information like okay, some people say like how he mentions like the overly positive, like no, it's his take on wrestling, and I think as long as I think like he does a really good job of like just reporting the wrestling. Like he might talk about
Right.
some other stuff, but he doesn't he doesn't tip his toes in like bullshit in it for lesser of a
Mhm.
better term.
Do you think like there's a difference between a wrestling journalist? Like there's different terms that people use, and
Right.
for folks like it means different things. So a journalist versus a reporter versus a pundit, like a talking
Right.
head, someone who just does commentating. I feel like we can maybe be in that kind of circle, or a content creator, right? Like all these terms mean different things.
Right.
And do you feel like there is a difference between like that? If I say wrestling journalist, reporter, pundit, do you feel like those are three separate things, or is there some kind of like Venn diagram somewhere in the middle
To
type
me,
thing?
it's like either way. It's like it's three roads that lead to the same thing. It's
Hmm.
like it's how you absorb your wrestling news.
Yeah. Um, Chris, what about you? When you
Like
when you hear wrestling journalist, what the hell does that mean?
I mean, they're dealing with sharing, like Sean Ross Sapp, for instance, is a example. Kind of like saying that, oh, this contract's up, or there's some kind of information. But I mean, it can also vary. It doesn't have to necessarily be like inside baseball stuff necessarily. I feel like if you're reporting on what happened on a show, like highlights or something like that, that is a form of journalism, right? You're just kind of like talking about the business and showing, you know, breaking it down for people essentially.
Hmm. Andres, what about you? What do you think when you hear wrestling journalism? What do you think about?
Uh, I mean, I think about like those people that are at the post like pay per views, like the ones that are asking questions and gathering intel. To
Hmm.
post for their own social media. Just um,
yeah, like the
and
Waffle
same thing with
House
sports in
order.
general.
Yeah, because and that's what I mean. Like when I say wrestling journalism, it's like, and it's such. I feel like it's such a unique thing
It
to
is.
wrestling, where it's like you have a room where it's called a quote unquote press conference, but there's different degrees of what you would consider a journalist in that same room, right? Like you have people who are like Sean Ross Sapp, that I think does a really good job because they have sources and people they have as a reference, and they report on
Trust
the
me, bro.
news. And there are people who are also like trust me, bro, kind of folks, who are also in that kind of same
Twitter.
room. Yeah, I mean, like Twitter heads. I mean, like there's a whole bunch, and there's no way that everyone has the same level of credibility and sources as like I mean, I don't even know. Like something like Dave Meltzer, I feel like sometimes I'm like, okay, he must have some kind of sources, and then other times I'm like, I don't know if you're just talking out of your ass or what. So it's like I when I'm thinking of like that kind of figure, and then if I'm thinking of like I don't know a CNN or like you're reporting the news on like war and politics and that kind of stuff, where you have like sources and you have to back it up. I like I don't know if like those kind of folks have those kind of episodes like Meltzer does, where it just feels like he's just musing about like reading his crystal ball and this is what I think it is. You know what I mean? Like there's a difference. Like there's like you need to have facts if you're writing an article up in the New York Times versus I don't know the Wrestling Observer or something like that. So that's where like for me when I'm thinking of wrestling journalism as a term, it's a little wishy-washy. I feel like there are some folks who fit that bill, but then if you look at a room of folks, when you put them all together in like a press conference, results may vary. I feel like, and I wouldn't consider us to be wrestling journalists or reporters or anything like that. I feel like we fall more under like the content creator and kind of like commentary folks. Like folks who enjoy wrestling and we like talking about it. And then sometimes we have an opportunity to interview wrestlers and talk about wrestling. Like I don't think I'm a journalist by any stretch of the imagination, and that's why I feel like we're different from that. And
I'm a
and
journalism.
yeah, and
I'm a
dirt
journalism.
sheets. Dirt sheets. Let's talk about like dirt sheets, right? Because when I was younger, I loved reading about it because I just thought it was kind of cool to read up on like contracts or rumors of people maybe showing up, or if there's a backstage issue and that kind of stuff. And it's very TMZ to some degree, right? Like you're hearing some kind of drama that happens backstage. You're not sure if it's real, if it's not real. And sometimes there are certain things like for example, Edge, Matt Hardy, and Lita, right? Like that was like dirt sheet type stuff. And then that stuff manifests itself on television and then becomes a story because there's enough of a fervor, like just conversation that gets created on the internet and then put on TV. So like I feel like that's fascinating to me. And I feel like we've all kind of done it to some degree, read up on some kind of dirt news or whatever. And I don't know where the term came from. I don't know if any of you know what the origin of the dirt sheet is, but I feel like it's been around as long as at least like the 80s or 90s when it comes to like wrestling, quote unquote, wrestling news and what goes on in the business. And I guess, Andres, what do you think? How is the internet and like the 24/7 news cycle of this kind of stuff? How do you feel like that's changed like the nature of wrestling news and rumors? Because like you of course had like the newsletter that like Meltzer would be mailing out in the 90s or whatever, and that's how folks would be getting their news about like different stories. And now it's like social media. Everyone has a website now with links and rumors to things, and their sources, trust me, bro. And a lot of news stories also just get shared and retweeted on X, and then it just has a life of its own, right? Like, and then you see like the shares of like this thing got shared 300,000 times, and who the hell knows if what this person said is real, right? So, long story short, how do you feel like it's changed the nature of wrestling news and rumors?
It's definitely widespread and more easily accessible. I mean, I remember buying like wrestling magazines like in the day, like they had like news and you had to be like And there was a site I would recite to Wrestling Source One or something. Man, I can't remember. It was so long ago. But now, I mean, you can just pull up your phone and find guys like us or, Trust Me Bros in the press conference rooms and like get all kinds of news really quick. I mean, it's so conveniently easy now. No more mailing anything.
Yeah.
So, and then pretty much when news breaks, I mean, even TMZ's on wrestling news too.
That's true. I did actually just see that they have like a freaking their own YouTube channel, like a TMZ Pro
In
Wrestling
the ring or whatever.
podcast. Yeah, subsection now. They got
Mm-hmm.
two of these guys, and I was listening to the one they just had. I'm like, you guys are in like a different realm because like your takes are wild to me. But you know what? That's awesome.
I saw I saw a clip of their YouTube short of them reacting to Hulk Hogan's death, and like on the very second, like someone got on the phone, like he was getting the confirmation of it. Someone was already typing the story, and he had like already like 1,000 words ready. And he's like, I have it ready now. If it's confirmed, I can send it. And then the guy who like runs everything, he's running back and forth. Like, did you get it? Did you get it? Okay, go. And then he's like screaming, send it now. So like they had to be like the first people to ever like be the ones to like post it. It was kind of crazy.
That was a YouTube short.
Yeah, if I can find it again, I'll send it to you.
Yeah, that's wild. I mean, those are the same people who like announced, was it Kobe Bryant's death?
Yep.
Like
That's
before even like the family or anybody else knew. Like, I don't know what the hell,
Jesus.
like what their sources are or whatever. Like, that's insane.
The nurse.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, that's their business. But yeah, David, what do you think? How has the internet, like this 24/7 news cycle, changed the nature of wrestling news and rumors?
I think it just keeps it going at all times. I wish I could get a silly one off,
Mm-hmm.
like gobbledygooker or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like
Just one time. Just one
Yeah.
time. Just like everybody thinks freaking, I don't know, Kevin Nash is going to show up and be one of Cena's last opponents for whatever reason. Like, source.
becomes true.
The
Yeah.
fake news
No,
media.
I don't even want it to come true. I just want it to get enough clicks.
Oh, just get enough like
Yeah,
of a
dude,
rumor
got-
conversation.
Got y'all.
It
Yeah,
just gets
dude.
so popular. You get like Wade Barrett to like dispel your
Yeah.
rumor or Kevin Nash because like, I don't know where you heard this from. This isn't true, bro.
Don't
Wade Barrett's not
It's-
taking PTO. He's showing up.
Yeah,
For Cena?
That's insane.
But no question. Did Kevin Nash officially retire, or is he just not wrestling?
He's
He ever like
retired.
officially announced it? He has retired. Okay, I can't recall saying like him ever actually saying I'm done. Like I'm not doing it anymore.
You heard it
I
here
don't know if he had,
first,
like, an
folks.
official like retirement match, but
Retired.
yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I know he's definitely up there. I know he hasn't wrestled either, so I'm just assuming, but I don't recall his actual retirement like announcement.
Chris, what do you think? What are some of the most? Who do you think are the most reputable sources for wrestling news, and who do you think are the most disreputable sources for news?
I feel like everything that we consume, or I should say, at least like I consume, like What Culture and all those guys, like they're a lot of times they're just kind of
Might have said.
parroting, what's been being reported somewhere else, and they're just kind of like doing their thing. So, I mean, the question is like, who are these sources? You know what I mean? Like, is that what makes a journalist, a journalist if they have like legitimate sources?
Right. Well, who would you view as reputable? Like they're just not talking out of their ass.
I mean, I guess Sean Ross Sapp would be the main name because he's the name everybody loves to bring up. So he must have some legitimate sources on the inside. If you're gonna get something
Yeah.
remotely close to the truth in this specific realm, it would definitely have to be Sean Ross Sapp.
Yeah, I mean that's why when it comes to like news stories and stuff, I tend to just pull from Fightful because I feel like they are the most reputable when it comes to actual like news coverage or contract dealings or whatever. There are certain things that they turn into as a news story, and it's easier to synthesize because like you can pull it off from Twitter if I'm scrolling and see like Ronda Rousey talk shit or something. I could have taken a screenshot, but I feel like it's easier when they have a centralized place and they put a story together, and then it's easier for me to like read the story. They already found it, and then I can summarize it, and then we can just talk about it. And they don't only do those kinds of things, but like you said, I feel like contract disputes, even things like the AJ returning kind of stuff, like they had sources that kind of confirmed that they were having conversations before that. So I feel like they're the most reputable. Wrestling Observer, I don't know. I mean, I don't think they're just dirt sheet peddlers. Like, I feel like some people just like to talk shit about Dave Meltzer and Brian Alvarez, but I don't know. I think there's still a certain level of legitimacy to that. I mean, like, he isn't just sitting on Twitter and just like talking shit like some kind of like basement dweller. Like he does go on those media calls and he does ask Triple H and Tony Khan and guys like that questions. When it comes to specific things within the business, whether it's a contract dispute or deals with ESPN or NBC Universal. So like, I feel like that is a certain level of legitimacy that you're doing. Versus like, I don't know, Nikki Bella said something on video, and I think it's because Wade Barrett was talking shit, and they were just basically putting one story and then put another story, and then they made up a reason in between. They fudged it together, and then it kept rolling. Like, for example, we just brought it up, the whole Wade Barrett thing, where they thought Nikki Bella said something on a podcast, and then Wade Barrett, I think, she said something about like him. I don't know what it was, but it was something about like
Being mean.
something I don't know, yeah, something like that. And then like he responded to her, and then basically there was a news story about Wade Barrett was not going to be on the road. And this happened. That story popped up after that conversation on the podcast, and then people rolled with it. They were like, "Oh, see, this is why," because Nikki Bella basically told Triple H or whoever, like, "Oh, I had this issue," so now they took him off commentary because this and this happened, and then they rolled with it. That thing got like 50,000 retweets and a bunch of comments, and then Wade Barrett had to come out and then like actually comment on it and say this isn't true, and I actually had planned time off or whatever.
PTO, baby. I'm cashing it in.
Even like the same thing like Kenny Omega and that kind of stuff. They were saying, because he had also planned time off or whatever, making a big deal out of nothing.
I mean, just like the state of like media consumption, like how your average fan consumes media these days. A lot of people get the news from, influencers and all these people. Like a lot of people just find things out because they're on TikTok or whatever. They're not like tuning in, on the television necessarily. Like there's still that crowd, but because would you consider somebody like
pull out their coffee?
Yeah. Would you consider Hassan a journalist? Hassan Piker?
No, I wouldn't.
Yeah, but
and
I mean,
I don't think even he considers himself a journalist. He just says like he's just like an idiot streamer or whatever, and he gets connections and stuff. Like he legitimately goes to places. Like I saw him go to the Japanese Communist Party, and it was asking like the chairman of that like just questions like in Japan, like. But I still wouldn't consider him a journalist. Like that isn't his core thing. Like the main function of his role and what he does where he earns money is he's streaming and like talking shit most of the time. He's commentating on stuff and just like interacting with chat and just doing gooner shit. Like it's not the same. Like you didn't get a degree for it, and you're not like that isn't your day to day. Like, so I wouldn't consider him to be a journalist, and he also says he isn't. So I guess that kind of like adds to it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like you said, like most people get their news for better or for worse, because that could be a whole other conversation about how people get their news from people like streamers and, like you said, influencers. I mean, being for real, like social media news feeds. a TikTok person who like made a fancy video and it looks real because it looks well produced, but who the hell knows is what they said in that video is accurate? Like a lot of people just like, yeah,
AI
did you see this
commentary.
shit? Yeah, I mean, like whatever. Like, oh, like look at this crying child that with like 7 fingers, and you have like 50-year-olds like resharing it because they think there's an actual like flood in I don't know bumfuck nowhere, and it got reshared like a billion times because this
The old people.
eight-handed child is crying on a log or whatever. Like that kind of shit happens, and that's kind of messed up. But I feel like that's kind of the world that we're kind of living in. But I do think real journalism still exists. And when it comes to wrestling specifically, I think there are very few like actual journalists or people that do that kind of stuff. I like Chris Van Fleet, I would consider to be a journalist because I mean like because he like it's I mean that's the thing like his focus is like interviews and having conversations, but I would consider that still that to be a level of journalism.
He gets good bits.
Yeah.
I think the main thing, though, because a lot of these, especially within the wrestling industry, I think the only legitimate journalist I feel is Sean Ross Sapp, because everybody always like, as reported by Fightful, as reported by Sean Ross Sapp. Like every time I see
Right.
somebody like Chris Van Fleet or anybody else, it's just literally stemming from that. But let me just read the definition of journalism from Oxford Language. So the activity or profession of writing for newspapers, magazines, or news websites, or preparing news to be broadcast. So, I mean, there's people who are technically preparing news to be broadcasted, so it could be like a sound piker or an influencer on TikTok or something like that, if we're going by definition. But
I mean, but then I think
I'm a
for
journalist.
news, yeah, but like for news, it still has to be like, is this backed up by facts? Because like then what would you say is the difference between like a journalist and like a propagandist, right? Like there's a difference between stating facts that's just like these are just the legit balls and strikes, and this is what it is versus like I have a certain agenda to spin and I'm saying this, I'm broadcasting it. That for me, that's not the same thing. Like an NPR is not the same thing as like a Fox News, for example. You know what I mean? Like there's one that just gives you news and it's just like cut and dry like that. And then other people, you have your talking bobbleheads and people who put their spin on it, and of course those get more views because it's more interesting, more fun. It's more crash TV, and not everyone wants to sit through like some kind of dry commentary on, I don't know, fucking coffee bean growers in Zimbabwe or whatever. You know what I mean? So
Let's go.
it's like, yeah, I mean, like I think there's a difference, but let me ask you this, because I feel like I mentioned some of things that were like dirt sheets or in the news, and then it like became something in wrestling. I feel like, I mean, like give divas a chance. I'm trying to think like, is that something that happened on the internet and then rolled in? I mean, yeah, because that was like a social media thing. But is it a dirt sheet thing? I think there's I think to a certain degree, because it's like, because you would be hearing news stories of like girls and divas being frustrated about the booking process or whatever, and you'd hear, I mean, it was a dime a dozen when it came to those kind of news stories.
Right.
So let me ask you this, I guess, David, how much influence do you think like from like the amount of time that you've watched wrestling, how much influence do you feel like wrestling news sites and dirt sheets have on the booking decisions of major promotions like WWE and AEW? Can you think of any like specific examples where you feel like fan speculation that was like fueled by these sites led to actual like change in creative direction?
One thing, the thing that came to like the top of my head right away was when Rollins and Bray Wyatt had that terrible Hell in a Cell.
Mm.
And so, but WWE responded by turning Rollins heel the next week.
So what? So can you refresh in my memory, because I wasn't, this was like 2019, right?
Yeah.
Can you refresh my memory, like what happened in that like era? So Rollins was babyface, and then Bray Wyatt was like the heel.
Yeah, but people like Rollins had weird. I shouldn't say Rollins had weird booking. I just think it wasn't done right because it's like now him and Becky Lynch are are doing stuff together and everybody loves it. But
Right.
maybe it's because it was against Baron Corbin. Maybe it was because Vince was there. Like who knows? Maybe it just wasn't
Right.
the time to do it. And so it's Hell in the Cell, and he couldn't stop the Fiend. So he started throwing chairs and buried them under a bunch of weapons, then smacked his sledgehammer on top of the pile of debris. And the ref was like, "Oh no, even though it's Hell in the Cell, it's over." So it went to ref stoppage, and yeah,
Damn, that's crazy. I actually did.
right.
I remember them talking about that being like one of the worst like Hell in a Cell matches, and in general in terms of like the direction. But I never got myself to watch that. I just took folks' word for it.
But I seen it live. I remember
that was like
just
when they
like
had the Hell in a Cell pay-per-view, right?
yeah, and like that was back when the Fiend was still wrestling under the red light. So it was like a whole Hell in a Cell in a red
Oh,
light,
hell no.
and
Was the
then
cell
yeah,
red too?
probably I don't know. The lights were red.
I remember when they were doing that with Sin Cara. He had the trampoline, and then anytime he'd do a match, it was like blue and pink or some shit. I honestly don't personally like when they do that kind of stuff, but I mean, I guess if it's gimmicky. But so what in the like in news was like kind of hovering around that time where they were like, all right, well now Seth has to be a heel. Like what made that
Everybody
switch
hated
for
it.
us?
Everybody hated it. They already people didn't want the match to happen because they knew that like there was no right way to do it,
Hmm. Yeah.
and
And you know
and
what? You
then
know,
like
this kind of like reminds me of like another aspect of wrestling journalism. And it's not just like reporting on the news, but people with, like you said, Chris, so like people with a following that like have a lot of eyeballs if it's like a commentator, and the commentator is like shitting on whatever is happening. And there's a lot of people who are like, yeah, you're right. That is shit. And I feel like when you have like a decent YouTube subscription following, and it makes enough noise, I feel like that does a ripple effect. Like it's not just the news pieces of like, oh, backstage issues number 556. It's also like really watched YouTube video of this one commentator just really shitting on this match. And then in the comment section, you have all these people complaining about it too. And then there's this ripple effect because you have so many people who watch it who probably also watch the product. So I feel like that's kind of another aspect of that.
And then it becomes news because I mean, I feel like wrestling's this interesting thing that like a lot of stuff can influence where a story can go based on because it's a reaction thing of a crowd. So similarly,
Right.
if you have some influencer with a bunch of followers and they're talking some crap about this thing, and then everybody else just starts to parrot what they're saying, and then that translates into shows, then it becomes technically the news because that is the okay, well, this is where it's going now or whatever, right? So it's kind of interesting. I think it's very unique to wrestling specifically. I think that the crowd has this influence, and also by default or by proxy, then influencers who watch wrestling also have this kind of influence.
Yeah. I mean, like, I feel like, I mean, the power of social media, I think, does a really heavy lift for some of these things. And I do think, like, wrestling journalism, whatever you want to call it, however you want to describe it, and everyone puts different folks under that umbrella. But yeah, like, We Want Cody, like that whole thing when Cody Rhodes came out, and they thought that he was going to be facing Roman Reigns, and then it's not going to be me, and then The Rock comes out, and then there's this whole like issue, and there's a combination of news stories about, oh, this is what happened, this is why they pivoted, and then you have the fervor of people on social media. YouTube commentators saying like what like La Greca, like I don't think they're wrestling journalists either, but like Busted Open. I think they have a unique thing because they have wrestlers who were in WWE combined with guys who are on Sirius Sirius FM, which is like a quote unquote legitimate like radio like broadcast, whatever you want to call it, satellite station, talking shit in his pink bathrobe or whatever it was that he was doing during that time. But like all that combined to, I think, change the course of Cody Rhodes actually getting it back on track, facing Roman Reigns. So I mean, I think that's like the most recent one where they actually changed creative direction based on something that they read or listened to. Andres, what do you think from like a wrestler's perspective? What do you think are the potential pros and cons of having like their every move in contract negotiation being reported on?
I mean, their contract specifically.
I mean, contract is part of it, but it's like, what do you think are the pros and cons of like having their every move being reported on? Like, contract negotiation is part of it, but it's like also other things like, I don't know, like Rhea Ripley, for example. I guess was reported on that these people were shoving autographs in her face when she was trying to get into like a car. Like that's just a small example, but like
so the celebrities
is like yeah.
Okay, I mean, I'm sure there's like the pros are like okay, the pros are. I don't know. I don't know how I would like that if that would be so much of a pro thing, because I do know like cons are like obviously your privacy is going to be pretty much invaded and people are going to know where you're going to be and stuff. Like I've even gone to shows in the Rosemont and like I remember going to the Hyatt in the Rosemont and there was like a section actually made for WWE fans because at the Rosemont Hyatt that's actually where a lot of the wrestlers used to stay. And I remember seeing it and actually there was actually people on every floor with radios just looking for wrestlers. They're like, oh, like Roman Reigns is on the 7th floor, he's coming down to the lobby, and then people would go running. It was kind of crazy, not gonna lie. I've never experienced that before, but my friends who were going to the show, they're like, oh, we just heard about like this is where to hang out to meet them. And though we met a bunch of them, we met Paul Heyman, Paige. This was a very long time ago. What was his name? Zack Ryder, Booker T, like yeah, right. No, well, I met Road Dogg. He was super cool. He was really cool. He actually hung out and like talked with us for a while. But no, like the hotel like knew about this whole thing, and they actually had like a whole like roped off section that said for WWE fans. So I don't know. I feel like it's kind of part of the job now, and unfortunately, like people like. The cons are people, people are gonna like know where you're at, know what flight you're on too, because they were able to find that out too when I was hearing them talking. It was kind of crazy. It's insane. Yeah, they knew like their flight. They somehow knew when they were landing. They knew which hotel they were booking to. I don't know how, but it's kind of crazy. Yeah. So I mean, pros. Yeah, I don't know.
What pros can you get from? Yeah, like what pros did you get? And don't like we don't even have to only include like people who are like legit like stalking their every move. I also mean like like being reported on like I don't know your personal life, or maybe you have disputes like with creative about like your personal direction in wrestling. Like even things like being reported on in that sense. Like do you see a pro in there for like from a wrestler?
Yeah, I guess like if. Yeah, I guess if like if you I don't know, like if you complain about something with creative or something, or the way that the company is booking you and you're getting recognition from your fans, but it's making a lot of news and it's going to the dirt sheets, it's going to the guys that are journalists or not journalists, and maybe WWE also kind of recognizes that in your favor too, them getting their support and stuff like that. Maybe that could also be a very pro thing too. If it's a legit thing too, like if it's not like you're just being all sour grapes about something and you're like, no, like this is legit, like the universe is even telling the company like, please, like kind of what happened with like Daniel Bryan, because I remember like when Daniel Bryan was like getting like he kept getting like the short end of the stick, and like the crowd was literally booing like every pay-per-view, like really bad. And even like legends were coming in on Twitter and saying like, "Does?" I remember Mick Foley was one, the big one. He was like, "Does WWE actually hate their fans?"
Right.
You know. And then eventually Daniel Bryan got his big moment at WrestleMania. You know.
And then what happened?
I think pros like that are really good. That can help elevate you yourself. You know.
Yeah.
And then he
But I
said
think
none of that
those are
mattered.
pros.
Yeah, and then he said, which is also kind of interesting. I wonder where that came from. But maybe we can save it for another time. But Dave, what do you think? What it comes from like a wrestler's perspective, and that question of like being reported on your every move, whether it's a contract negotiation, creative disputes, love life issues, I don't know, whatever you want to name it. Like, what are the pros and cons of that being reported on by journalists and the like?
The cons are they're in your life. The pros are this is exactly what you wanted. You grew up idolizing, well, I should say idolizing, but like looking up to musicians and athletes and entertainers, and you are at the popularity helm of being a Venn diagram, like in the middle of all three. So it's like, welcome.
Yeah,
It's
I mean,
gonna
like, I
happen.
think,
It's gonna suck.
yeah, I don't know if there's a way to avoid it unless,
No, unless you're the Undertaker and
No.
just walk around blank face for 30 years and don't say or do much, just walk around in black and ignore everyone.
right? I mean, exactly. Like, it just like what kind of life do you want to lead? I guess if you are like super kayfabe, like the Undertaker, where he just kind of understands how to like, but I feel like most people now aren't that. And especially, I mean, especially now, like
I
it's
think
such a different world, you know.
I think
It
MJF
is,
does a
man.
good job at being all three.
Yeah.
Like he understands that he has to show up. He understands that he could like use his character a little bit, and that he just needs to convert it all into good.
Yeah, I mean, like from a wrestler's perspective, the cons are definitely like
They're in your
uh,
shit.
they're in your shit. Yeah, I mean, they're reporting on every like little dirty detail, and you know, like sometimes I'm sure it's not even true, but it's like then you might be hearing it from like your family members who might be hearing it in the news or something like, "Hey, is this true? Did you actually do this or
Yup,
whatever?"
sure did.
Yeah, exactly. Like you got to deal with that. I think when it comes to like a pro, I mean, I think the most recent example is like Karrion Cross, with like the creative issues, and his contract coming to an end. I think for him, it was a net positive because he got so much. I mean, fanfare. I mean, also just a bunch of interest on him as a character because people weren't sure if it was real or not. And then, he did a bunch of these interviews talking about his contract disputes. Another person, Ariel Helwani, I think, does a really good job in like a wrestling journalism perspective. I think Ariel Helwani's pretty legitimate as a person. His interviews are always great. And again, like his interviews with CM Punk, like legendary, like that shit got a lot of views after he left AEW. The Karrion Cross stuff, like that guy, I feel like that specific type of journalism, I feel like helps guys like Karrion Cross when it comes to like creative decisions and issues like that. So that's a pro.
I would say
The
another
con, of
pro.
course, yeah. Go for it.
I think one of the main pros would be that they can use, like feeding information to, the mark, so to speak, to influence a storyline, right? Like they can put out, call it false information or something to egg people on into, creating some kind of a storyline out of that stuff. So that's a potential positive that you can just kind of influence the narrative a bit.
That's true. So I think as we're wrapping up, and we talked about a little bit like the evolution of what wrestling journalism is, wrestling news analysis, and that kind of stuff. what like as we close this up, what do you think is the future of wrestling journalism? How do you feel like it's going to continue to evolve with like, the new technologies and all these different fan expectations that keep changing? Um, Chris, what do you think? What do you think is like the future of wrestling journalism?
I mean, the dystopian version is definitely the AI just slop. That's just like you'll get these random videos that are being, commentated by some AI voice, and it's like they're just going over information that's
Mm-hmm.
not necessarily true, or you'll see these like AI like images of like wrestlers and stuff, and then like on Facebook, I don't know how many of those likes are bots versus how many people are like legitimately thinking like it's an actual scene or something like that. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
definitely AI just being a big influence on as far as like perception of did this happen or not. Like that's going to be a big one.
Yeah. Andres, what do you think?
Um, oh, the future of journalism. I mean, yeah, I gotta say, I mean, obviously with Chris's point, I mean, obviously with AI taking off as much as it is, and um, that could definitely be making certain questions because it's becoming more realistic as it comes. Like every freaking month, there's always like a newer AI generated like system coming out. But I mean, even so, even with the prospect of social media evolving with it too. I mean, journalism is just going to keep growing with it, and we're going to probably even know. I don't know. I mean, that's why I think WWE kind of also started to reveal more about like their business because I think they kind of knew like it's going to get to a point where like it's going to have to be like everyone knows it's fake, but showing it more and making money on it at the same time is a good idea. So I
Right.
mean,
You get to set your own narrative at that point.
yeah, at that point, yeah.
David, what do you think? What do you think is the future of it? What does it look like to you?
I think it's gonna keep moving towards the way of like the streamer and the watch along, and yeah, just like other than like recaps of like shows and stuff, like them just on their own time, like probably just repeating the Sean Ross Sapp or just like putting their own thought piece again towards like certain subjects like that, just with the live chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, I kind of
Yeah.
liken it to
Yeah. Go
um
ahead.
like just like talking with your friends on the schoolyard or something about like something. That's why people like watching these reaction videos and jumping on streams and stuff because there's this kind of like social aspect to it. So I think like David's saying, the streaming of, just whatever, hanging out, like we're playing a game or something, somebody else is, and they're reacting to what's happening or they're reading again like Hassan kind of does. He's just like sitting there shooting the shit, going through random articles and then just having discourse in the chat. So it's probably some version of that, I imagine, on top of everything else that's just been there. So all the legacy media stuff and the Twitter stuff and all that.
Yeah. I mean, I think to your point, when you said AI, I think that's going to be a big factor in those kinds of things. Cause like I've also seen like they have like those weird AI images where it kind of looks like a real person. Like they had like a picture of Roxanne Perez and someone else where it kind of looked like Roxanne Perez, but it
Oh
wasn't.
yeah,
And you had like a bunch of like
that
image like
was
comments
freaky.
in the section like, oh, like what'd she do to her face or whatever the hell. Like some people don't know that that's an AI generated image, which I don't think is great because again, I feel like when it's not if, it's when AI gets like AI as a language model, I think is already doing a pretty damn good job in terms of analysis. But when it comes to like video editing and picture creation, when that happens, and you can't tell the difference between like a real photo that's being taken and a recreated one, that's going to be, I mean, scary. I think scary to a certain degree because then you won't know unless the person who took the picture says is real or isn't real. But
That's
by the time they get a response from that person, it already got shared 500,000 times, and half those people aren't going to bother following the source, right? Like they're already gonna be like, oh yeah, I know you from that one thing that I saw on the internet, that's true, isn't it? And then they have to spend time trying to, explain that shit. And there's like 10 more crazy ass pictures that got taken in its place, right?
Yeah, I hope that there's a legal thing that gets created, because when it gets to that point, I feel there needs to be some kind of a watermark or a stamp or something that's saying that
Oh, absolutely.
this is an AI image or video. Because yeah, I mean, there'd be so many deep fakes and could cause like a slew of issues, right? Like people can create whatever, make people criminals because they, did something on an AI video or something. So
Yeah, I
there's
mean, think about all like
regulation.
the go-to stuff with like presidents, like they sample their voice, and then you could have like Biden or Trump say whatever the hell you want them to say, and some people are like, "Did he really say that?" You can
Like,
make him say
Yep.
"skibbity toilet" or whatever.
right,
The fuck
right.
you can get him to say.
Like we've shared a bunch of
Um,
stuff on Instagram of just people saying asinine stuff, and it's crazy because it gets pretty uncanny. Like the inflections of the words, you could tell like it's kind of like off, but it's like, to the unsuspecting person, like it's enough to be like, wow, why would they say
So
that?
it's like if you
Yeah.
show your grandma Arnold Schwarzenegger, she'll be like, "Oh my God, he's lost it."
Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, and even like when like I said, when it came to like pictures, when it was like that's clearly AI, like, but then there were still so many people that still thought it was real. Like, just think about when it legitimately looks like I can't tell if this is real or not. And like, there's already like Instagram like profiles with like someone was, I don't know if it was just like in our algorithm on Chi-Town Shoot, but there's like this AI like wrestling page. They just did like the SmackDown show, and it's like Botchamania, like but AI versions, and like it's
Yes.
just like putting them in weird situations. Did you send it? I don't know if it was you, Andres, or someone sent it.
It might have been
It was
me.
like
Yeah.
like Cena.
I know what you're
with, like
talking about.
they get stabbed by a clown or whatever. Like it takes the scene and it looks real, and then like a clown just shows up and just like shivs them. Or
Yeah.
like
I was wondering who said that.
That one I
It was
don't
Andres, I
remember.
yeah, but like it used to look like super weird, like oh that's not AI, but I'm like it kind of looks a little like real, which is like then when you see it's like so bizarre because it looks real. And I'm like, why the fuck did a clown just show up and like shank him in the side, or like AJ Lee, like she like just goes on top of her and just like spontaneously combusts like on top of Becky Lynch.
She just like
'Cause
rolled
what
away
I-
or something.
You
She
just see
rolled-
self-destruct.
Yeah, like apparently that's like a signature thing. It's like they always have someone go on top of another person, they just blow up in flames or whatever is like one of their shticks. But yeah, I mean, like just shit like that is what I'm saying. Like going forward, like this will just speed up even quicker. I feel like when it
Right by
comes
next year.
to AI stuff, it'll just get crazier, yeah, and more uncanny. Like think about like just a year ago, like how much of a difference in video quality and stuff. So. I think that's the biggest effect that's going to be in journalism and yeah, and just like it being used as a tool for creating like images and like video of putting people in situations where it might not be real. So I think that's a wrap for this episode of the Chi-Town Shoot podcast. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, rate us, and leave your feedback. Tune in next time for more wrestling madness. Until then, keep marking out.